The King of Worms, the Revenant, the Order of the Black Worm, the Necromancer's Moon. All names that evoke Mannimarco. Easily one of the top most recognizable names of an Elder Scrolls character, especially for those of us who have been playing the games for years. Mannimarco has been one of the most consistent characters across the Elder Scrolls franchise, playing large parts in the storylines of The Elder Scrolls II Daggerfall and Elder Scrolls Online, and being the primary antagonist of the Mages Guild side quest in Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion. Appearing physically in 3 Elder Scrolls games and having a card in the Elder Scrolls Legends is something that is basically unparalleled. In terms of sheer appearances, Mannimarco is contending with some Daedric princes in his frequency. Not only is he a consistent character, but he is important as well. The King of Worms was responsible for the spread of necromancy throughout Tamriel, the soul burst of the Second Era, and he was a key player in the infamous Warp in the West. Mannimarco lived a long and interesting life, spearheaded by his lust for power and elongated by dark arts. But before we talk about any of that, before we really understand who Mannimarco, the King of Worms, is, we must first understand who he was. Much of Mannimarco's early life is unknown to us for most of the series. In every depiction, he is represented as an Altmer, but according to his own autobiography in The Elder Scrolls Online, Mannimarco refers to himself as an Aldmer. In ESO, however, he is an Altmer in the game files, so perhaps this is just propaganda. Now, I'm always tenuous about using ESO's material as canon, considering Mannimarco especially, but in the same aforementioned autobiography, he states that he was a mage from infancy, descended from Artaeum, and something called blood selected for Magicka. Regardless of his direct origin, or even his race, he begins his story in the Psijic Order, a collection of mages located on the Isle of Artaeum, which itself is located outside of Tamriel. The Psijic Order served the rulers of Somerset Isle as counselors, and chose its members through a complex, ritualized method not understood by outsiders. I believe this could be the blood selection that Mannimarco referred to, although it is also possible that he was trying to express that he was bred for magical talent. The Psijic monks are the oldest monastic order on Tamriel, and are practitioners of mysticism magic, which we'll touch on in a few minutes more in depth. Mannimarco and his contemporaries, Vanus Galerion and Vestari, all attended the Psijic Order at the same time, and by some accounts, Vanus and Mannimarco were even friends. Although this is not a Vanus Galerion nor Vestari lore video, it is important that you know that Vanus will go on to found the Mages Guild, and Vestari will go on to do important research into Black Soul Gems. In The Elder Scrolls Online, the player character can visit Artaeum and actually enter Mannimarco's old laboratory, where you can see shades of Vanus and Mannimarco, discussing the ramifications of the latter's studies.
Just look at this place. How in Cerebane's name did you get the right master to unlock it for you?
He rightly acknowledged our superior skill. It's only natural that he'd let us work here.
Well, it's quite a privilege.
Privilege? It's our right, Vanus. You mustn't be so humble all the time.
Not this again. Come, let's explore further.
Secluded? Cavernous? Yes, this will be perfect for my research.
What have you done? This is just repugnant.
Oh, Vanus. I would have thought you less judgmental. It's just a bit of puppetry. Nothing but arcane lift and spirit handling.
That was a living thing, Mannimarco. You're edging close to a dangerous line. Too close.
You sound like the right master. The only lines are those you draw in your mind.
I'm not going to... Please. Just find a new avenue of research, all right?
Oh, Vanus, you fool. You will never understand true power.
This is what happened to our classmates? What is wrong with you?
Wrong? Honestly, grow up, Vanus. There is no right and wrong. Only power and weakness.
You've made me for a fool. I can't believe I didn't see the rot infesting your soul. You will answer for this eventually. I swear it.
And you, my friend, will answer for your short-sightedness when I eclipse you in every way. You tattled, didn't you? You're a greater fool than I thought.
You tainted the Thapora Tower. You're worse than a murderer.
Pathetic. You expect Ichesis to bind me here? No! Simply banish me from the island.
That won't be enough. You're a beast, Mannimarco. A beast that needs to be caged.
Of course you're right. And once I reach the mainland, I'll show the world just how right you are. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a ritual to complete. Now, to my masterwork. If Ichesis does not see the genius of my work, he can rot with the rest of them.
While in the Order, Mannimarco was introduced to the art of necromancy, and was thrown out of the Order back to mainland Tamriel by the Psijic Rightmaster, Ichesis, which would be a decision doomed to haunt all of Tamriel for generations to come. This light punishment of simply banishing Mannimarco to the mainland angered Galarian, who set out to found the Mages Guild as an attempt to standardize arcane knowledge to the public, and was a foundation, in some senses, built to counter Mannimarco. Now, the way the soon-to-be Worm King comes to embrace necromancy is actually fairly unclear. In the book Worm Saga, his own autobiography, he states that
necromancy, death art, chose me stern and fast.
Necromancy wasn't a mainstream practice at the time, but certainly there were necromancers before him and necromantic practices. But regardless, Mannimarco's interest in raising corpses seems to have arisen out of nowhere. I find this to be a fair assumption, given his own words saying that it sought him out, coupled with the fact that the Psijics, through their own methods, deemed him worthy of joining their ranks at one point. In diving deeper into his introduction to this dark art, we have to review one of the most convoluted pieces of Elder Scrolls lore, the concept of a dragon break. A dragon break is essentially a period of time where time no longer flows in a linear direction, allowing for all sorts of strange things to happen. There have been a few known dragon breaks in Tamriel's history that have been recorded. However, the Middle Dawn and the Warp in the West are the major two that deserve discussion for the purposes of this video. The King of Worms lived through the Middle Dawn dragon break and was a central figure in the Warp in the West. For now, we'll begin chronologically with the Middle Dawn. The Middle Dawn dragon break is the longest dragon break that has been recorded, spanning 1,008 years. This dragon break was caused by a sect of the Alessian Order named the Marukati Selectives, whose goal was to split the elven aspect of the god of time, Auriel, from the imperial aspect, Akatosh. Hence the term dragon break, as Akatosh is often depicted as a dragon. Now, this is completely confusing, and I don't want to dwell on the details of this too much in this video, but suffice it to say, Mannimarco was affected by the Selectives, as is seen in the lore book titled, Where Were You When the Dragon Broke? This book is a collection of accounts throughout the Empire of people who were affected by this dragon break. There are accounts of the Tribunal's apotheosis, the activation of the Numidium in Rimmon, and the Marukati Selectives during the Middle Dawn. One of these accounts is purportedly by Mannimarco himself, who has this to say.
The three thieves of Morrowind could tell you where they were. So could the High King of Alinor, who was the one who broke it in the first place. There are others on this earth that could too. Izmir, Pelinol, Arnon the Fox, or should I say, Arctus? The last dwarf would talk if they would let him. As for myself, I was here and there and here again, like the rest of the mortals during the dragon break. How do you think I learned my mystery? The Marukati Selectives showed us all the glories of the dawn, so that we might learn simply, as above, so below.
Mannimarco, interestingly here, asks the reader, how do you think I learned my mystery? Now, I personally think that, like many things in this series, it is meant to be a little ambiguous. However, if you'll indulge me for a few minutes, I think I've found a connection here. In the lore book Mannimarco, King of Worms, Mannimarco's life is chronicled through verse. During the confrontation with Ichesis on Artaeum, Ichesis calls Mannimarco's necromancy wicked mysticism. Now, the word mysticism and the word mystery in our own world stem from the same root word, that being this ancient Greek word I will throw on screen. I honestly have no idea how to pronounce it, so rather than mispronouncing it, I'll just show you what it is. In any case, when Mannimarco refers to how he found his mystery, I would posit that his mystery is the secret of the mystic art of necromancy. Furthermore, people who have only played Skyrim may be unaware, but for a long time in the series, mysticism was a school of magic that the player could invest time into learning, much like conjuration or destruction. Mysticism is said to be the magic that the Psijics themselves utilize, so it would be no surprise to find that Ichesis would refer to Mannimarco's corruption of their magic as wicked mysticism. Further backing my theory on the revelation of his mystery is another important book we can glean some information from during the Third Era. In The Black Arts on Trial, penned by Hannibal Traven, he interviews a certain Master gra-Kogg, who has this to say.
The schools of magicka are, as we know, artificial constructs, originally formulated by Vanus Galerian to divide and thereby simplify study. They have changed many times throughout the years, but at their heart, every master knows they are all linked together. When a student of conjuration summons a guardian ghost, he is touching on the school of necromancy. When a student of enchantment uses a trapped soul, he too may be considered guilty of a black art. The school of mysticism, as I have stated before, has some kinship with necromancy as well.
Putting everything together, we know that a mystery was revealed to Mannimarco by the Marukati Selectives. I am arguing this mystery was necromancy, which has links to mysticism, the type of magic that he would have been studying on Artaeum. This revelation was, of course, a result from the Dragon Break of the Middle Dawn, during which Mannimarco was a part of the Psijic Order. So, Mannimarco discovered necromancy while he was in the Order, due to the mystery revealed to him by the Selectives. As I mentioned previously, Mannimarco was cast out of Artaeum and the Psijic Order upon their finding of his laboratory and his necromantic experiments within. This punishment, in hindsight, was something that would go on to haunt and change the history of Tamriel for the rest of time. The aforementioned Mages Guild was founded by Galerian, and in its shadow, the Order of the Black Worm was born, an organization founded by Mannimarco. He recruited many mages throughout Tamriel to his cause. Seeing as necromancy was a taboo art nearly everywhere, he had no trouble finding talented initiates who wanted to dabble in the practice, and his knowledge of necromantic practices grew by the day.
Even as the Mages Guild was founded by the ex-Psijic Vanus Galerian, so was the Worm Cult founded by his arch-rival and nemesis, the ex-Psijic Mannimarco. Both were trained on the Isle of Artaeum, but when Galerian got Mannimarco expelled for his dabbling in forbidden necromantic arts, the self-styled Worm King simply relocated to continental Tamriel and took up his heinous pursuit in earnest. He is known to have sought out hidden manuscripts describing how the dragon priests enthralled their Draugr, ancient Aeliad tablets regarding the summoning of spirits of the dead, and the Crimson Book of Skulls, which Shalador himself had thought destroyed. Mannimarco has bragged of consorting with Daedra lords, and may even have bargained with the father of vampires, Molag Bal himself.
Mannimarco clearly had been busy. All the while his influence was growing, and no doubt his ego as well. Vanus Galerian, all the while, was doing all that he could to suppress his spread of what he considered to be an evil usage of magic. Mannimarco's ambitions would not simply stop at the continued spread of necromancy. It would lead him and his devoted Order of the Black Worm into working with the god of schemes, Molag Bal. Sometime before Second Era 576, Mannimarco was able to find his way into the company of Baron Aquilarius. Varen was a former Duke of Coral, and Mannimarco acted as his chief advisor during this time. It is likely that Mannimarco was not public with his identity at this point in time, so Varen thought nothing of enlisting him into his army. Mannimarco was instrumental in assisting Varen to defeat the Longhouse Emperors and claim the imperial throne for himself, which itself is a long story. However, Varen did not have the Amulet of Kings, which is both a symbolic representation of the Emperor's authority and a supremely important artifact from Alessia and Akatosh's sacred covenant. The amulet had been lost for generations. Mannimarco urged Varen to form a group whose purpose would be to find the Amulet of Kings, and this group would go on to be known as the Five Companions, which consisted of Saisahan, the captain of the Dragon Guard, Lyris Titanborn, the Emperor's personal bodyguard, Abner Tharn, the Chancellor of the Elder Council and Imperial Battle Mage of Tamriel, and of course, Mannimarco and Varen Aquilarius. Eventually the group retrieved the amulet and, playing with Varen's insecurities about not being a true-born heir of Alessia, Mannimarco told the young man,
"The coronation ritual, properly modified, could not only light the dragonfires, but persuade Akatosh to invest him with divine agency and gift him with the blood of the dragon."
Varen jumped at the opportunity, and in Second Era 578, he and the Five Companions began the ritual.
There it is. The Dragonfire Brazier. Mannimarco, you certain this will work?
It will work, my liege. The Amulet of Kings will rekindle the dragon fires and ensure your rightful place as Emperor. You have my word.
It was at this point where Mannimarco, after years of loyalty to Varen, finally set his plan in motion. Mannimarco corrupted the Amulet of Kings, and the ritual was a complete disaster.
Varen Aquilarius, you are no heir to Alessia. You will pay for your sacrilege. The veil between Oblivion and this world has been torn. My master, Moloch Baal, is free to claim Tamriel for his own.
The King of Worms used Varen to ignite an event known as the Soul Burst, wherein a powerful surge emanating from the amulet disrupted the veil between Nirn and Oblivion, causing another event known as the Planemeld. Since the Dragonfires were inert during this time, the covenant between Akatosh and Alessia had been broken, allowing Daedric forces to invade the Mundus. The souls of every citizen of Nirn are said to have been disconnected in some sense or another from the bodies of their hosts. To top things off, during the Second Era, tension had been brewing throughout Tamriel, which led to the formation of three great alliances known as the Ebonheart Pact, the Aldmeri Dominion, and the Daggerfall Covenant. In the aftermath of the Soul Burst, Varen Aquilarius vanished, and in the absence of an emperor on the Ruby Throne, each alliance launched their own separate assaults on Cyrodiil, which served as the central theater for their warfare. This event was known as the Three Banners War. Now it should be clear that the Soul Burst was an event that sparked many other incidents. The Planemeld, however, was Molag Bal's main intention. He planned to merge his Plane of Oblivion, known as Cold Harbor, with Nirn. He used Mannimarco's worm cult to aid in building dark anchors across Tamriel, which served as links between their worlds. Quite literally, they were built to anchor Cold Harbor to Nirn. But interestingly, the Planemeld was not Mannimarco's intention, not really, as he had a more sinister plan in mind. By Second Era 582, the Three Banners War and the Planemeld were in full swing, and the remaining members of the Five Companions were all drastically in different places. Saisahan hid the Amulet of Kings from Mannimarco and was subsequently kidnapped and tortured by him in an effort to get him to reveal its location. Abner Tharn begrudgingly pledged himself to Mannimarco in an effort to both preserve his life and the Empire, and was held in a place known as the Castle of the Worm. Varen Aquilarius awoke, weakened and physically aged after the ritual, at the Abbey of the Moth Priests. The priests took him in, and he began studying the Elder Scrolls in an effort to undo the mess that he had a hand in creating. Varen lost his sight, as is a common effect of reading Elder Scrolls unprepared, but what he gained from his readings was insight far greater than his eyesight ever was. He took on the name of the Prophet and began prophesizing across Cyrodiil until his imprisonment in Cold Harbor by Mannimarco. Lastly, Lyris Titanborn eventually met up with Varen. Although he was a different man than the one she last saw, she was determined to not fail in her duties as a bodyguard once more, and broke into Cold Harbor to set him free from his prison. It was here that Lyris staged a revolution in the Daedric realm. She freed several soul shriven, which are the husks of people whose souls have been stolen by a Daedric force, and in doing so, she freed a person integral to the next phases of their plan. This person was slain as a sacrifice to Molag Bal from Mannimarco, and since they were but a vestige of their former self, the Prophet began calling them as such. The Vestige. They would go on to assist Titanborn and the Prophet in correcting the Planemeld and fighting against Mannimarco and Molag Bal. Lyris took the Prophet's place in his cell so he could leave Cold Harbor, and the Vestige and the Prophet escaped the Daedric realm together. Now, that was a lot of setting the stage for the events to come, but I promise it is necessary information. It's time that we check back in on Mannimarco, for at this time, he was working on his own separate plot. Mannimarco had intended to use the Amulet of Kings to betray the God of Schemes himself. See, the Amulet of Kings is actually a soul gem, created from the blood of the Heart of Lorkhan itself. The amulet houses the souls of every emperor who ever reigned in a coalescence known as an Oversoul, which helps to guide the current ruler. Mannimarco had planned to use the amulet to steal Molag Bal's very essence, and to take his place as the god of not only Cold Harbor, but also Nirn through the Planemeld. This is why it was imperative for him to get the information out of Sai Sahan on the location of the Amulet of Kings. However, during this time, the Vestige and the Prophet worked together to save Abner Tharn, Lyris Titanborn, and Sai Sahan, and they formed a new 5 companions, which served as a thorn in Mannimarco's side during the Planemeld. Eventually, Mannimarco's plot was revealed to Molag Bal, who imprisoned Mannimarco in Cold Harbor. Through the efforts of the new 5 companions, the Planemeld was ended and the God of Schemes defeated. It is unclear how he did, but Mannimarco was able to escape from the clutches of the Daedric Prince eventually. It is assumed by most that the Planemeld event and the actions of the second 5 companions all took place and ended in the year 582 of the Second Era. Ever elusive, but with his own plot foiled, Mannimarco moved on to the Iliac Bay region, where he and his worm cult would be active for many years to come. In the book Mannimarco, King of Worms, there is a section dedicated to Mannimarco and his worm cult collecting relics to enhance his necromancy, and for him to gain more power. It should be obvious at this point that Mannimarco is seeking power more than anything else, and to back this up, he literally says this in 3rd Era 433 during a conversation you can have with him, but that's jumping the gun a little bit. The point remains though, he is ambitious and ruthless, and will let nothing get in his way of obtaining strength. While amassing this collection of foul artifacts, it is stated that Mannimarco became the first of the Undying Liches. Now, similar to how we've discussed the word choice used by Aikesis in the beginning of this book, I'm also very interested in going more in depth about the words in this sentence in particular. Let's talk about the adjective undying before the word liches. That's certainly not a necessary word at all, because undying is assumed already in the word lich, so we can posit that it may just be there to fill the syllable count for that line. Sort of like how when you're writing a paper for class and you need to hit the word count, you just fill in more adjectives, right? Moving on to look at the word first, though, is really the more important thing here. Lichdom was definitely around before Mannimarco. You can just simply look at dragon priests from Skyrim, which are eons older than Mannimarco. So what they're doing with the words first and lich here are using them not to mean first in a chronological sense, but to refer to the fact that he is the most important of them. As in first among equals is my interpretation. Nobody on the streets of the Imperial City could tell you who Barrelzar is, for example, but I'd wager that nearly everyone, at the height of his power, could tell you about Mannimarco the Worm King. And it is in this phase of his life where he really comes into the public eye more. Not long after his transformation into a lich, an old friend re-enters the story. Remember this whole time that Vanis Galerian had set up the Mages Guild, and it had been growing for years and years with locations in nearly every major city on Tamriel by at least the late middle of the Second Era. Vanis and his Mages Guild were actually key figures in helping the Vestige assault Cold Harbor during the Planemeld. However, it would seem that Vanis began to grow tired with his own creation. In The Origin of the Mages Guild, Galerian is quoted as saying, "The guild has become nothing more than an intricate morass of political infighting." This quote is further backed up by Mannimarco, King of Worms. It is told to us, or rather implied in King of Worms, that Vanis somehow witnessed or was told of Mannimarco's metamorphosis. This rightfully upset him, to say the least. He amassed an army of mages and lamp knights, and went on to assault Mannimarco and his Order of the Black Worm. This battle doesn't really have a name in history, so we'll just refer to it as the Mages and Necromancers War. During the battle, it is stated, though it may be poetic again, that 1,000 good and evil died that day, and Mannimarco was actually thought to have been included in the casualties. We of course know that that's not true, but it was assumed for many years by the public. The Mages Guild requisitioned the artifacts that Mannimarco used in his ascension, but they returned home without their founder. Vanis Galerian gave his life in the war in an attempt to end the life of his former colleague and the practice of necromancy. He secured his legacy in the pages of history, but in the end, his battle with the Worm King was unsuccessful. In the aftermath, Mannimarco yet lived, and, in a twisted turn of fate, he raised Galerian's corpse from the dead and forced him to serve as one of his worm thralls. Mannimarco states that this is something of a tradition for him. He allows powerful mages to seek him out, and in their death, he raises their corpses and studies them, amassing more power for himself. It is, needless to say, disturbing. We have no actual date for when this battle occurred, but we do know that it predates the Warp in the West, which is the next major event we have to talk about in the Epic of the Worm King. Slightly before the Warp, in the year 864 of the Second Era, we have a brief piece of lore from Elder Scrolls Redguard, of all places. The infamous slowed necromancer, Nagasta, states in a conversation with Cyrus the Restless that Mannimarco is his liege lord, and granted him the island of Stros M'Kai to use as his hunting grounds. I wanted to point this out because it shows how far Mannimarco's influence has spread in the centuries following the Planemeld. By 3rd Era 405, the King of Worms was still in the Iliac Bay area, operating out of a location known as Scourge Barrow. He became a major political player in the region during this time. Mannimarco truly never let go of his aspiration to become a god, and he had found another way to achieve his longtime goal of ascending to such status. In the Iliac Bay at this time, there were several groups all vying for the Totem of Tiber Septim and the Mantella, devices that were used to power the Numidium, the brass god that Tiber Septim conquered Tamriel with. These groups included the Orsimer, led by Gortwag Gro-Nagorm, the Bay Kings, which are all independent leaders, the Underking, a powerful mage who claims to be Zurin Arctus, the former battle mage of Tiber Septim, Mannimarco and his Order of the Black Worm, and finally, the Blades of the Septim Dynasty. Emperor Uriel Septim VII himself sent a trusted friend and agent to the Kingdom of Daggerfall in the Iliac Bay during this time.
Now, my champion, rest well this night, for tomorrow you sail for the Kingdom of Daggerfall.
This agent, although sent to Daggerfall originally to investigate the restless spirit of the former king, would later become a key player in obtaining the Totem of Tiber Septim. Through Mannimarco's help, the agent retrieved the totem, and the King of Worms was vital in the days to come. The agent had a choice to make with whom to give the Totem of Tiber Septim, and little did anyone know at the time, this decision would go on to spark an event that none of the key players could have expected. This event is referred to as the Warp in the West, and is the second Dragon Break that Mannimarco experienced. As a refresher, dragon breaks are periods of time where time is non-linear and blended. Beginning in 3rd Era 417 on the 9th of the month of Frostfall, and ending 2 days later on the 11th, something miraculous occurred. The Blade's agent gave the totem to every major player in the Iliac Bay, creating an almost paradoxical reality where all of their goals were achieved to some extent. Gortwog, for example, who simply wanted a country for his fellow Orsimer and recognition as people, not savages, had his goals met. The Blade's objective was to stabilize the region under Imperial control. What once was 44 independent kingdoms became consolidated into just 4: Sentinel, Wayrest, Daggerfall, and Orsinium, all loyal to the Septim Empire. The Underking, the Numidium, and the Agent all vanished from the Iliac Bay, and it is uncertain where they are to this day. Lastly, Mannimarco, the King of Worms, finally achieved his apotheosis into a god. By using the Totem of Tiber Septim to access the power of the Mantella, Mannimarco was able to ascend into the sky above. Every 8 days, all you have to do is look into the night sky, and you'll see the Revenant, the Necromancer's moon, the physical representation of Mannimarco's divine body. The Revenant eclipses Arche when it is present, signifying the God of Worms' presence as the only one responsible for life and death on those nights. Mannimarco, the King of Worms, became a god in 417 of the Third Era, 731 years after his first attempt during the Three Banners War. Necromancers across Tamriel worship him to this day and use the Revenant's influence to create black soul gems, which can capture the essence of one of the mortal races. But he was not done yet. During the Oblivion crisis in the year 3rd Era 433, the God of Worms made a strange reappearance in Cyrodiil, of all places. You see, at the time, the head of the Mages Guild at the Arcane University was Hannibal Traven, a powerful Breton mage who had taken a tough stance on necromancy, banning the practice 2 years earlier in 431 after his promotion to Archmage. The God of Worms, of course, was displeased by this action, as were many other mages during this time. Flocks of disillusioned Mages Guild mystics joined Mannimarco in defiance against the guild. Mannimarco himself, through some strange means, reappeared in his Altmer form in order to lead an assault on the guild mages. His ultimate plan was to kill Archmage Traven, and, like he had done so long ago to Vanus Galerion, raise his corpse and study it to further enhance his power. Archmage Traven had met a new student at the Arcane University that year, the same person responsible for closing the Oblivion Gate that Mehrunes Dagon's forces had opened at Kvatch. This hero and the Archmage worked closely together in opposition to the necromantic arts, and, when it was discovered that Mannimarco himself had led an assault on the Bruma chapter of the Mages Guild in Cyrodiil, the hero of Kvatch was instrumental in assisting Traven against the King of Worms. During this time, the Bloodworm Helm and the Necromancer's Amulet were both stolen from the guild by mages loyal to Mannimarco. These artifacts could very well have been taken from Mannimarco during Vanus Galerion's initial attack on him. The hero retrieved these artifacts along with a unique colossal black soul gem that would be vital to his plan. In a last-ditch effort to destroy the King of Worms, Traven asks the hero of Kvatch to approach the first of the Liches in his hideout at Echo Cave. Knowing that Mannimarco will try to enthrall the hero, the Archmage soul traps his essence into the colossal black soul gem and sacrifices himself, allowing the hero to use his soul as a manner of protection against the Worm King's magic. When the hero approached Mannimarco, the King of Worms let his own confidence get in the way of his power. Not expecting the trick that Archmage Traven pulled on him, Mannimarco attempted to enthrall the hero of Kvatch. However, since they were protected by the soul of the former Archmage, the hero was able to use this opportunity to attack, and finally, the body of the King of Worms was laid to rest in Echo Cave. Hannibal Traven gave his life to protect the guild, much in the same way that Vanus Galerion did so many years prior, and while the Revenant remains in the sky, and Mannimarco's influence as the God of Worms persists to the 4th Era, the hero of Kvatch and Archmage Traven were able to save countless lives of innocent mages and citizens throughout Tamriel. Really quickly, I want to discuss a theory about Mannimarco, or really several theories about Mannimarco during the events of the Oblivion Crisis. Some people, myself included, think that it's odd that Mannimarco would assume a mortal body once more and go after the Mages Guild after his apotheosis into the Necromancer's Moon. It seems beyond him at this point, or at least to me it does. Furthermore, it's strange that the Necromancer's Moon is still hanging in the sky while Mannimarco's physical body is roaming around. I've seen some explanations for this, and the three that I find the most compelling are that Option 1. Mannimarco is a god now, so if he really wanted to have a physical body, he could. Option 2 is that during the Warp in the West, Mannimarco both ascended to godhood and kept his mortal body, since all the events happened in non-linear time. Or Option 3. This one's my personal favorite, but probably the least believable. The guy in Oblivion is actually not Mannimarco, but just some imposter posing as him because he knew that he could gain a following this way. It has the least legs to stand on, but it mostly just stems from the fact that Mannimarco in Oblivion is far weaker than what we would expect, and he does not look like a lich at all. He is in fact extremely different in tone and appearance from his depiction in Daggerfall. His ESO appearance does not count for the matter, since that game was released about 8 years after Oblivion. But I just wanted to discuss those because I think they're fun topics for debate. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the story of Mannimarco, the God of Worms. What do you think about the character? Do you love him, hate him, feel indifferent about him? Do you like what Elder Scrolls Online did with him? How would you feel about him making another return in Elder Scrolls 6? Please feel free to comment down below. I'll surely see it, and it might spark discussion with the other Elder Scrolls fans as well. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This took me a lot of time to put together, so please feel free to like and share the video with some of your fellow Elder Scrolls fans, or even just throwing the link on Discord or Reddit would be very much appreciated. There will be an Elder Scrolls Legends deck releasing soon on my channel that will touch on the King of Worms and the Undead, since it is, of course, the spookiest time of the year. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.